Good Tuesday evening to everyone. Welcome to the Seth Joyner Show. My goodness, there is so much going on in the NFL today, and we're going to get through it all. This is a Talk to Him Tuesday, which means I'm taking your questions, your observations, and anything else you want to throw my way. We're going to go over, we're going to preview the Super Bowl. We're going to post-view NFC AFC Championship. We're also going to touch on the Eagles and the draft. But before we get there, I got a special giveaway for this week coming up Super Bowl Sunday. I'm going to give away, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell you later on in the show. So you're going to have to stick around to see what it is. You guys are going to love it. Also, let's touch on Tom Brady. And he has made it official. He is now retired from the NFL. And listen, everyone's got their own opinion, their own belief, how they feel about Tom Brady. But the dude's got 7 Super Bowl rings. He's won 7 Super Bowls out of 10. I played against some of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game during my era. Joe Montana, John Elway, Troy Aikman, Phil Simms, Steve Young, Vinny Testaverde. I mean, listen, the list of names just go on, and you have to shudder when you think about what this guy was able to accomplish, playing till he was 44 years old and just getting it done season after season. And to be honest with you, this season might have been his best of all. Over 5,000 yards passing, over 40 touchdowns. Honestly, I'd hoped that he'd come back for one more run. But I've been in that situation before. Only when it's time. You know how you feel about it. And, hats off and salute Tom Brady, one of the best to ever do it. I guess the lightning rod story today in the NFL is one Brian Flores, former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, files a class action suit against the NFL for racial discrimination in their hiring practices. There's a situation with Stephen Ross. I guess, before he was fired, there were things that Stephen Ross wanted him to do that he wasn't necessarily wanting to do. And listen, guys, as I throw these things out here, this is a Talk to Him Tuesday. I'm just rolling with the show. But as soon as I get through some of these things, I'm going to start getting to some of your questions. So all of these things that I'm talking about, we can go over them again. Just start shooting your questions as far as, what you think about Tom Brady retiring, what you think about this Brian Flores thing. And then we will we'll roll into some of the other stuff as the show goes. But apparently Stephen Ross, got into a situation with Brian Flores where he wanted him to actually tamper with a quarterback from another team, and Brian wouldn't do it. There was a tanking issue. Apparently, Stephen Ross is upset with Brian Flores because he wanted him to tank games. Actually, offered him $100,000 per game that he lost to get him to do it, and was really upset. I believe in 2019 or 2020, when at the end of the year, the team started winning, and he was upset because he was mad it was messing up their draft position. He also alleges that the New York Giants interview was a sham, that they already knew that by the time he actually came in for the interview, that they already knew that Daboll was their guy. And somehow or another, Bill Belichick was privy to the information, and messed up a text somewhere, a text that he meant to send to Brian Daboll. He actually sent to Brian Flores saying that he was his guy. Just a mess, And then when he actually interviewed for the Broncos job, before they actually hired Vic Fangio, he said he flew in. John Elway showed up to the meeting. Apparently he and the guys were hungover. They, were talking about how they were out the night before, and had a few, and how, all of those guys that were involved in that meeting, including GM John Elway, actually showed up to the meeting 30 minutes late. He says his objectives are to increase the hiring influences by Black individuals in the NFL. Also, more transparency in the hiring and firing decisions that transpire in the NFL, as well as, a path for Black investors, to not only invest in, but also at some point, get to a point where they can actually own a football team. And he says, quote, the need for change is bigger than my personal goals, unquote. I love the heroics. I love the fact that he's willing to stand for something. But you're talking about a promising career, in my opinion, a really good football coach. Has he just committed, career suicide with this lawsuit? And what will, if anything, what will manifest from this? Listen, we know we're smart enough to look, at the environment and know that there's some changes that needs to be made. Anytime that you have a Rooney Rule, that kind of speaks to the fact that, that there is some, some things that need to be changed. You shouldn't have a rule. It should just always be about, the best possible candidate. And I find it hard to believe that you can have, I think it's the numbers are something like, one African-American head coach, under 5 out of 32 GMs, something like 2 or 3 offensive coordinators, and I think 11 defensive coordinators, if my numbers serve me correct, that something's off with the numbers. So it's one of those situations where, I feel for the guy. I understand how he feels. I just wonder how this is going to affect his career moving on. When you begin to take on the big king of the mountain, a lot of bad things can happen. And they can make it look like he's not qualified. But we all know that Brian Flores is a qualified football coach, but I take my hat off to him and I salute him because he says, you know what, hey, this is bigger than me. It's bigger than my opportunity to be a head coach in the NFL. It's bigger than me putting money in my pocket, and you got to salute a guy who's willing to lay it all on the line for his principles and what he believes. Well, we're going to open things up. Questions are coming. We're going to talk about everything, from our Eagles and what they should do. I'm going to start it off. You guys start firing the questions. Zach, you roll them in whenever you're ready. But let's talk some Eagles for a second. The Philadelphia Eagles, there's a story, a report out today that says Howie Roseman is going to be very, very active in the trade and the draft process leading up to the draft, talking about moving some of these picks, talking about trading out of spots and getting into earlier spots. There's a lot to break down and a lot to talk about. The Eagles now hold the 15th, 16th, and 19th picks in the first round of the NFL 2022 draft. By my approximation, they need a defensive end, a linebacker, a cornerback, a safety for sure, and dare I say, a wide receiver. Okay. That's just to get things rolling on the Eagles. So Jay Koch wants to know who's my favorite linebacker. I was watching throughout, the end of the year, and I was looking at Nakobe Dean for the Georgia Bulldogs, and I was really impressed by what I saw. I really like what I saw. Oh my God. And then I got some film, I got some footage on Devin Lloyd from Utah. And oh my gosh. So as far as I'm concerned right now, um, Floyd is 1A, Dean is 1B. Simple. Simple. I mean, if I had my druthers, I'd take Floyd because of all the versatility of what he does. What Dean is, I think Dean is more of a guy, he's more of a middle linebacker type, a guy that's going to, make plays. And listen, he can run like the wind. So he can run from sideline to sideline. The issue is when you look at the athleticism of one opposed to the athleticism of the other, therein lies the difference between these two linebackers. Dean's going to be a box player. He's going to make tackles, from tackle to tackle. He's very smart. He's going to get guys lined up where they need to be. But this kid, Floyd, he can just fly there. You can put him on the end of the line of scrimmage and rush him. He can cover backside of the backfield, tight ends. He'll step up and hit you in the mouth in the box as well. And from what I see, I think he's the guy. I just don't know that, that we'll take him, because the Eagles, has historically not taken linebackers in the first round. The other part is, he's such a good player and you're limited at linebackers. These two are the top two linebackers in the draft this year. Is he going to be there at 15? Will he be there at 16 or 19? I find that hard to believe based upon what I see in film. All right. Next question, my man. Craig Jones wants to know, did the linebacker Taylor accept your offer to work with him this offseason? Listen, I have not heard from Davion Taylor. He did start following me on social media after all the chatter that was going on. I followed him back. Hopefully, there's a path, there's a way that we could work together and do some things. I just want to pay it forward. I just want to give him what was given to me so that he can be the best linebacker that he can be and he can accomplish all his goals and his dreams. But we'll see. We'll see where that goes. All right, Zach. Matt wants to know, please tell me you think 3 defensive players with the first round pick is the right thing to do. Hey, listen, we're on the same page, Matt. There's no doubt about it. See, there's this. If you go back to the divisional round and you look at the quarterback play between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and you watch Tom Brady bring his team back and then fall short, and you watch Matthew Stafford, light it up. See, everyone wants to say, oh, you need a quarterback. You need a quarterback. So now what? What are you going to do? You're going to mortgage 3 first-round draft picks to move up, and get a quarterback that no one's rated that high? I think that Ryan Tannehill, although he fell short, and Jimmy Garoppolo, even though he fell short last week, I would ask you the question, would you project Jalen Hurts to be a better quarterback down the road than Jimmy G and Ryan Tannehill? If your answer to that is yes, then this is what I would say. You build your defense, because Tennessee's got a great defense. San Francisco's got a great defense. You build your defense. You allow Jalen time to grow. I don't know whether you upgrade the running back position or what you do, because you got to come in. You got to, get you another heavy tight end that could be a blocker. So then you balance yourself up, run the pass, and you run a balanced offense. you play great special teams, and you build the defense, okay, until Jalen can grow up and be the type of quarterback that you need him to be. I don't think he fails 2 or 3 years down the road, the way you saw Ryan Tannehill and the way you saw Jimmy Garoppolo fail in the playoffs this year, because he has mobility. He can get out, he can make plays, he can save plays for you. He's just got to grow up and learn how to play the game, and that takes time. I don't care who you are. I don't think he flinches. I don't think, he stutters the way that we saw those other two quarterbacks do in these playoffs this year. I think that if you build around him the proper way, and in my opinion, the way that you build around him is you give him a good defense, okay? You go out and you find you a reliable wide receivers that you can add to this receiving core, and there's plenty out there. You got Gallup, you got Godwin, you got Williams. There's one more that eludes me right now. But if you bring one of those guys in, that automatically changes this wide receiver core right away. So yes, I'm 100% on board with you. If I was making these picks, I'd go and get me a bona fide rush in. I'm not talking about an edge rusher. I'm not talking about a linebacker that rushes the passer. I'm not talking about that guy that's 6'2", 6'3", 255 to 265 pounds. No, I'm talking about a bona fide defensive end, 6'5", 275 to 280, that's proven that he can rush the passer. No projects, okay? That's the first order of business. Then I'm going to get me one of those two linebackers. Whatever I got to do to get one of those guys, I'm going to get one of those guys, no doubt, okay? And then the third thing is I'm either upgrading the safety position with a guy that's an impact player, or I'm going to get another guy to play on the outside at corner that can complement Darius Slay on the other side, that will allow us to play a much more aggressive style of defense, and hope that, Kavion Wallace and some of these other young guys will hurry up and grow up, and we can get some productivity out of those guys. But that most certainly would be the route that I'd go. My opinion. All right, Zach. Anthony wants to know, I know you stated you would roll with Hurts in 2023, actually 22, that is. But do you think Howie has a plan for a trade for a vet, or take one of those quarterbacks in the draft? Listen, none of those quarterbacks in the draft are rated high enough for us to take. This whole thought that, get rid of Hurts and go get the other guy. Well, guess what happens when you go get the other guy? All the growing pains that you just went through with Jalen Hurts last year, you're going to go through those growing pains with all of those guys. Pickett, Corral, I forget the kid from Liberty, the Ritter kid from Cincinnati, all of those kids. They're going to have to learn how to grow up in the game of football and play. They're going to go through those same growing pains. So this theory that you can just go draft a quarterback in the first round and he'll be that guy to supplant Jalen is nonsensical. Now, can you go out and bring in a veteran quarterback, who's halfway decent, that might and go into the offseason saying, okay, Jalen's got the hand up, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's his job. Listen, there's nothing like motivation to bring out the best in players, and I get it. The quarterback position is different, but Jalen became the starting quarterback on this football team under very, very different auspices, okay? The whole thing with Carson Wentz, he's not anemic to all the controversy that's going on. So you don't give him the job. You put it in a situation where, okay, you're 1A, you're 1B as far as, your quarterbacks are concerned. Now go out and compete. And the guy that gets the job done is the guy that starts. Now, we know that guy is going to be Jalen Hurts. It has to be. But at the same time, what's wrong with creating that air and that element of competition? Because the cream always rises to the top. You're going to get the best out of every player when you put him in the most competitive of situations. All right. Jack wants to know, do you think the Eagles will trade these upcoming draft picks for a veteran quarterback? Well, Jack, let me tell you something. I certainly hope not. I don't think that this is the draft for the Eagles to, make any mistakes, do anything dumb. Now, let me ask you a question, okay? So the three quarterbacks in question are Deshaun Watson. Even if the Eagles the Eagles do get Deshaun Watson, okay, let me explain to you the process and what's going to happen. Deshaun Watson is going to have to go through the process. I guess, his court case and all of that stuff will commence sometime in February or March, okay? Even if he's exonerated, the NFL is going to hand him an 8 to 10 game suspension. So you just traded away draft picks, first round draft picks, for a guy who's really not going to give you a full season. For all intents and purposes, if he's out the first 10 games of the season, you mean to tell me he's going to throw him in there in week 11 and all of a sudden you think he's going to be the guy, having not played football for the previous year and a half? So really, you're trading for a guy that you're not going to have for really. He's going to be out of football for 2 years, okay? The other two options are, you got Russell Wilson, who's, once again stoking the fires about how he wants to, explore his options. Russell Wilson is 33 years old, okay? Now, I get it. These quarterbacks are playing a lot longer, than they did back in my day. But you mean to tell me you're going to trade away the foundational basis of your football team for a 33-year-old quarterback that if it's not working out at any time, he could be like, peace, I'm out of here. I'm retired, okay? Same thing with Aaron Rodgers. If the opportunity presents itself for Aaron Rodgers, it could be the same situation. You're going to give away all of that draft capital and risk not building your team for the future for a quarterback, and you think that just the quarterback is going to be the difference between you winning the Super Bowl and not? Elliot Shore Parks put up a piece today when someone tweeted, hey, Elliot, do you think that, if the Eagles had an elite level quarterback, that they could be where the Bengals are right now? And he tweeted, yes. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. This Eagles football team ain't close. They got too many holes on the defensive side. So my question was, okay, with the offense constructed the way that it is right now, which one of these defenses, San Francisco, the Rams, Tampa Bay, they showed us what we could do against them. I'm trying to think of the other NFC team that's in there, the Cowboys. Okay, what is our offense at the way that they're presently built? What are they? How many points are they going to score? Okay, and then conversely, tell me which one of these offenses is our defense the way it's presently constructed. Which one of those offenses are they stopping? They ain't stopping the Rams. They ain't stopping the 49ers. They ain't stopping the Cowboys. They gave up 93 points in 2 games to the Cowboys this year. And I don't care whether they decide to put, the Z team in there or not. Okay? They're not beating those teams. Not the way that they're presently constructed. I don't care if you bring in Joe Namath in his prime. I don't care if you bring in Joe Montana in his prime. It ain't happening. Okay? This team is in dire need of more pieces, more talent, okay, and just better play calling, because the offensive staff is learning how to call plays. This was a learning year for them, and obviously you need to be a hell of a lot more aggressive on the defensive side, because you can't just live in just 4-man rush all the time and think that you're going to be able to survive that. If I took the 49ers game, the Rams game, and we didn't play the Rams, but the 49ers, the 2 Cowboys games, and I'm trying to think, the Chiefs game, and the Buccaneers game, the first one during the season on Thursday night. I could put those together right there, and that would make a point for everything that I'm saying, because they got absolutely annihilated by those 5 teams when you put together the statistics and see what they did against those teams. Absolutely nothing. So if those are playoff teams, what do you think the Eagles need to do? They got to get better. Okay, they got to get better, and it ain't gonna happen just because you go out and you bring in Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or anybody else. Okay, it ain't gonna happen. They got a lot of building to do. Zach James, my producer, wants to know what current players in the league who are free agents are likely to be let go would you try to bring to the Eagles? That's a good question. I would really have to begin to look at the list and see. The problem is when you're the reason why the draft is so important is because when you draft a player, then you get him on a rookie contract. When you sign a free agent, especially if he's a coveted free agent, then you got to come out your pocket. And that affects your salary cap and your ability to address other needs across the board. I think at the end of the day, the Eagles are going to have a lot more salary cap, this year because the cap is going to go up. Brandon Brooks just retired. Congrats to him. So you got all these other factors that's playing into this offseason for them. But a lot depends on what the price tag is. I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be a free agent, after the Super Bowl coming up this year. Allen Robinson, DJ Chark. I mean, there's so many guys, especially at the wide receiver position. I haven't even gotten over to, how you could possibly create depth and competition on your offensive line. Who's available there? At running back, who's available there? On the defensive side of the ball, maybe you don't have to use draft capital on the defensive side of the ball for a specific position if you can find a free agent that's a viable guy, that's an experienced guy to come in. And I think that's what they really need, especially at the safety position, because it's a position that requires a lot of communication. And one of the biggest problems with young players is they can't communicate what they don't know. So they come in and they're trying to learn a system, so they're like, their mouths are taped during the entire time. As coaches, the coaches will turn to them and be like, communicate, talk to the guy. It's easy for coaches to say, but when your wheels are spinning 100 miles an hour and you're trying to learn and figure out a new defense, there's no communicating there. So the problem is, you need safeties, who are great communicators, who understand the defense, who can come in here and learn this defense and be able to communicate in a way where everyone, on the back end from the linebackers back are tied together, that there are no miscues. There's none of those, guys dancing in the end zone and you got a safety in a corner standing back there looking at each other, talking about, I thought you had him. No, I thought you had him. No. If you talk about it pre-snap, then you don't have those issues. But yeah, Zach, I'm gonna dig into the free agent market as we move through the offseason, as well as the draft. We're just gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about these draft picks that the Eagles got. We keep talking about the 3 first-round draft picks, but to be honest with you, the Eagles have got 11 overall picks. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit to see how we begin to wheel and deal here in the next month or so, and see those numbers actually go up. Maybe even move some of those picks, move down, get an earlier pick, and give up maybe 16 and 19 to be able to get another first-round pick next year, to have 2 next year for next year's draft. There's a lot of options here for him, and I'm just curious to see what it's going to look like as time goes on, as far as what he actually does and what the plan is moving forward. But as much as, we talk about them needing to address the defensive side of the football, let's not forget that, Jeffrey's mandate is an elite level offense. If we got an elite level offense, then we can compete. That's true. You can compete as far as putting points on the board, but if you can't stop nobody, then you come down to, the situation where the last guy with the ball. That's, considering, that you really do have that quarterback that's got ice water in his veins. All right. Josh wants to know who should be our defensive coordinator if Gannon gets a head coaching job. Huh? Is that a loaded question or what? Listen, I love, Vic Fangio. I love what he did with that Chicago defense, especially when the Raiders made that awful mistake of trading Khalil Mack to him. That defense was on fire for 2 years. He's got a lot of diversity to what he does, a lot of creativity, with what he does. And he's not passive minded at all. There's a good balance of, when to come and when to play soft, and, a lot of disguises, a lot of movement, and a lot for quarterbacks to have to think about, rather than a guy just being, stationary and giving these great quarterbacks a pre-snap read as to what you're doing. But yeah, I think of the guys that are out there, he's the guy, that I like the most, that I would love to, see come in and take over for the Eagles. All right. David said, have the Eagles ever reached out to you regarding coaching? And do you have any interest in coaching at the NFL level? See, this is what happens when, your producer loves to create controversy. No, the Eagles have never reached out to me regarding coaching. Back in the day, I reached out to Howie Roseman, didn't really, hear back from him. So I let it be. If the right situation presented itself, I would step into, coaching in the NFL wholeheartedly. Has to be the right situation. Has to be one of those situations where, I feel like I have a voice to actually coach. I've had friends that have coached in the NFL, and their biggest issue is, when you're an assistant under someone else, they want you to coach the way that, that they would coach, and I get it. Let's say you're the linebacker coach. If you're the linebacker coach, you're the one that's responsible, for coaching the linebackers. But to be in a situation where you're coaching and you really can't impart any knowledge, that doesn't do much for me. That doesn't do much for me at all. Because the only reason I want to coach is I want to take what's in my heart and I want to take what's in my head from my years of experience and pass it on to these young players. If I don't have the ability to do that, then it's a complete waste of time for me, to ever get into coaching. Because that's, at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about, right? But that's kind of what you deal with, when you come into the league. You got to start at the bottom and work your way up. And when you're at the bottom, you're under somebody, and they've got their ways of doing things and ways of dealing with situations. And, if you want to, you got to go along to get along, and I'm not sure that I'm that guy, that can necessarily go along to just get along. All right. Jonathan wants to know, not Eagles related, who are the coaches who should be hired to fill a head coaching vacancy? And listen, I think that, I thought that Brian Flores did a phenomenal job. Now that some of the BS comes out in the wash, now we understand why he was fired. Listen, Brian Flores is a coach of integrity. And Stephen Ross was trying to do a lot of non-integrity type things. And Brian Flores just pretty much called him on it. Now, you can't oppose the guy that writes your check. you know, and if you have, these conflicts, and that seems to be what it is, then that's going to be what the circumstances and the situation are. I think Brian Flores, with the right owner and the right time frame, can turn around one of these teams. I think he'd be great in Minnesota. I think he'd be fabulous in Minnesota. Eric Bieniemy, long overdue. Long overdue. I mean, why are we even having this conversation? I mean, he took a guy like Patrick. He's been working with a guy like Patrick Mahomes for the last 4 years. The guy's been in 3, 4 AFC championships in a row, an MVP at quarterback, and he's the guy that's calling the plays. Why hasn't he got a look? Matt Nagy didn't even accomplish that, and he got the head coaching job in Chicago. Okay, Byron Leftwich, Todd Bowles. Why aren't these guys at the forefront of these coaching of these coaching hires? I mean, it makes absolutely no sense to me that these guys don't get an opportunity. The statement by the Giants was, "Oh, we hired Brian Daboll because we felt he was the best guy, the best candidate for the job." So you're hiring a guy who's never been a head coach before, based upon what you saw, with Josh Allen. And I get it, because if you're going to continue to commit to Daniel Jones, then you better go and get somebody, to fix him. But that's a big if, because if Daniel Jones ain't wired like Josh Allen, not even the wizard is going to be able to fix him. Okay. But you're not going to tell me that Brian Daboll, because he's never been a head coach before, and you just saw what Brian Flores has done, you're not going to tell me that he's a better head coach. Where's the proof in that? Where's the proof? So, at the end of the day, it kind of is what it is. We can see the BS all across the board, okay? And while we're continuing to have these conversations in the 23rd century or 22nd century of 2022 makes absolutely zero sense to me. Zero. But it seems to me, as far as we've come, we still got a hell of a long way to go. All right. Lori wants to know, watching from the playoff games, I noticed our personnel are not as quick as some of these other players. Or is it scheme? Lori, I was really excited about when I watch Nick Sirianni working with the wide receivers in OTAs and in training camp. I was really, really excited about what I was seeing, because he was teaching them how to run routes, how to stem routes at the top, how to come out of routes. And as the season progressed, all of those fundamentals just went out the window. So now all of a sudden, Quez Watkins began to look extremely average with that 4.3, 4.3 speed. Jalen Reagor, guys were running routes for him, because all of that stuff that they worked on it just went out the window. I just couldn't understand it. And let me tell you this about the defensive side, because that's a great point that you just came up with. Players can only play 1,000 miles an hour, all out, balls to the wall, when they know without a doubt what they're doing. 9 times out of 10, it's one key. I need one key to tell me what the heck is going on. So the process in your mind is, okay, the defense is called. The first thing that every player should say, I got this on run, I got this on pass. Now you've already pre-programmed in your mind what your responsibility is, okay? So once you pre-program it, now I need to lock in on my key. What's my key? If I'm off the ball, it's that uncovered lineman that tells me whether it's run or pass, okay? If that guy pulls, then so all of these things are happening, in a split second. Now, if they shift or they go in motion and we check the defense, that thought process has to start all over again, okay? Even as you scan in your mind the film and the formations that you studied all week to give you so that you can anticipate what's going on. Well, when you're thinking, it's almost like paralysis. Guys can't play 100 miles an hour. Guys can't play balls to the wall. Guys can't shoot gaps and make tackles for losses and make sure that they're covering routes the way they need to be covering them when they don't know 100% what the heck it is that they're supposed to do. Okay? So the same way that, fatigue makes cowards of people, the lack of knowledge, will slow you down and make you think you're going 100 miles an hour when you're really just going 50. Okay? So that's part of it. I mean, that's the best answer that I have. I don't know 100% for sure why we don't play at a faster pace. I don't know whether they practice really fast or what all those things are, that they're doing. I'm not privy to all of that kind of stuff. But I do know that when your mind is going 100 miles an hour, your feet are going a lot slower than that 100 miles an hour because you're not sure. And when you're not sure, you can't pull the trigger and do all the things that you really want to do. Okay? Ron wants to know, will we keep Booby Sanders? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think he's got another year left on his rookie deal. Listen, I like Miles. I really do. But this injury thing has, in my opinion, has run its course. You can't have your number one running back, and he's injured all the time, all the damn time. If it ain't one thing, it's another. You can't win like that, And I get it. The injuries are a part of the game, and there's nothing you can do about it. They're going to happen. But in a game that requires, as much as people have tried to devalue the running back position, in a game, in my opinion, that needs good running backs, they're crucial to your quarterback success, and obviously they're crucial to everything that you want to do offensively. You got to have a guy that can show up. Listen, he's hell when he's well, but he's always in the tub. The other thing is, the best availability, the best ability is availability. And to be honest with you, he's just not available enough. Now the thing I would hate to see happen is the Eagles decide to move on from him and he goes somewhere else and get healthy. And the next thing you know, he's tearing it up, going to the Pro Bowl somewhere else or something crazy. I just, you just have to continue to ask yourself these questions. Is the juice worth the squeeze when it comes to some of these players that can't stay healthy or not developing at the speed and at the level that you need for them to develop? I hear Howie talking about, Jalen Reagor and, how they're, listen, when somebody shows you who they are at some point in time, you got to believe it. You really think that Jalen Reagor is going to be any better next year than he was this year? Howie seems to think so. I don't believe it. I think that he's in need, of different scenery because Philadelphia can wear you out if you're not mentally strong enough to deal with it. Okay. John wants to know, can Gainwell become a big time back? If he ever learns how to protect, absolutely. His problem is he can't protect. He doesn't understand protections. And teams picked up on this really early in the season and made it impossible for the Eagles to really utilize him the way that they wanted to because, he missed in protection quite a few times. So you can't have a guy in where pressure forces you, to stay in as a back, and yet you don't know who the heck you're supposed to block. If he ever figures that out and he becomes proficient at picking up the blitz, then yeah, I think he can, because that's the MO, that's the blueprint on him right now. If you want to take that guy away in the passing game, blitz him. And it don't matter which side you blitz him from, because he don't know who the hell he's supposed to block. And I think that's one of the reasons why they had to sit him down at the midway point of the season, because they could not trust him to be in the game. All right. Before we, hey, let's Zach, take that one down. Let's go back. I want to make sure that we get through the preview and the review and the preview of the Bengals and Chiefs. My goodness, Joe Burrow. I tweeted after the game. I said, "Hey man, you know what? The Bungles are the Bungles no more. They're officially the Cincinnati Bengals." The belief of this football team, and to overcome the Chiefs, what the heck happened to Patrick Mahomes in the second half? I mean, I got to tip my hat to the defense coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, because in the first half, it didn't look like they could stop anything. And then all of a sudden, they come out and they start mixing up that three-man rush and dropping 8 people in the coverage. And Patrick Mahomes had nowhere to go with the football. And those 5 guys couldn't block those 3 guys the entire second half. Okay? And Patrick Mahomes, I think, it catches up with you when you lose the structure of your offense. And you could begin to see it. You could, talk about it. Travis Kelce telling Patrick Mahomes, hey, the seam route is open over here. Or for instance, against Buffalo, hey, the out and up, I got a spot over here that's going to be open. Teams are going to get smart enough to see that you do a little bit of ad-libbing. Sometimes the ad-libbing, works, but when it doesn't, it's highly detrimental. Highly detrimental. And I think that's one of the things that the Kansas City Chiefs kind of got caught up in this year, because there's a lot of option routes. There are a lot of routes that they change, and Patrick Mahomes is cerebral enough to just sit in the pocket and wait for these guys, to do what they do, and just, okay, you're supposed to run an in route, but you're going to run an out route. I'll put it on you. He's that good. But when it doesn't work, the structure of what you're trying to do kind of falls apart. But all the credit goes to the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow made a statement, after the divisional game. He said, we came to get it all. That kind of confidence that just blows me away, And listen, I think that they're confident to believe, that no matter what the circumstances are, that they can come back. And as young as they are, they're crazy enough to believe that they can actually win the damn Super Bowl. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be shocked one bit if they pulled it off. Okay, the Rams against the 49ers. Can any defensive coordinator in the NFL come up with a defense to stop Cooper Kupp? Blows me away. 142 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns after the guy just lit the league up all year long, and not a single defensive coordinator thus far has had an answer for Cooper Kupp. Now, if Matthew Stafford comes out throwing the ball to him early in the game, Jesus, he might have had 200 yards receiving. I mean, it's just crazy. Nobody has an answer for this guy. The Rams and their all-in approach, it's going to be interesting, because the question has to be asked, if the Rams don't win on Super Bowl Sunday, what do? They mortgage the farm. They don't have a first-round draft picks until 2024. Okay, what is their salary cap situation going to look like next year? What's going to happen if Sean McVay comes up short yet again? And then just to preview, Super Bowl 56. I'm so looking forward to this. Again, like I said, what would happen if the Rams don't close the deal? And are the Bengals just young enough and naive enough to believe that they can do this? There's no fear in this team. And because Joe Burrow is fearless, I submit to you that confidence and that fearlessness has kind of bled into the rest of the team and the rest of the organization, where they really, really believe Do you realize I think they had the same record last year as the Eagles, 4-11-1. How the hell do you go from 4-11-1 to one win away from the Super Bowl? It's just phenomenal, man. It's phenomenal. I mean, so let's talk about these moments, because I'm telling you right now, there's gonna come a moment in this game for each one of these quarterbacks. Okay, Matthew Stafford is going to be under pressure. How does he react to the pressure? You know, as great as he played this year, 40 plus touchdowns, we know that under pressure, he ain't that same dude. He'll throw one up, he'll give one away at a critical time. I'm telling you, moments in this game. There will be a critical moment for Matthew Stafford in this game. And likewise, I don't think that there's a moment too big for Joe Burrow, because I think he got ice water running in his veins. And I think the bigger the moment gets, the more excited he is and the more steely he becomes in how he plays the game. But those moments, the difference between the moments, one guy not really affected by the moment, because you watch Joe Burrow. I mean, during that game, I mean, he couldn't get anything going in the first half. The pressure was getting to him, and all of a sudden, he looked like a whole different player in the second half of that game. I submit to you that his scrambling, his ability to get out of the pocket and make some first downs with his legs was the difference maker in that football game. Okay? All right, let's light it up. Let's light up the questions. Still on anything. If you want to talk about, the conference championship games, that's fine. I'll answer those questions. If you want to talk about the upcoming Super Bowl 56, we can talk about that as well. And if, like Tammy, you want to keep, inundating me with these Eagles comments, I'll take those too. Overall, Tammy wants to know, how would you rate Sirianni's first year? I would say average. Tammy, and strictly because I think that early in the year, clearly, having Jalen Hurts pass the ball as much as he tried to make him pass it wasn't working. That cost him dearly at the beginning of the year, and they got off to a 2-5 start. You've got to make that adjustment earlier in the year. You got to see that that's a problem earlier in the year, because the San Francisco game was winnable. The Charger game was winnable. The Chiefs were reeling early in the year, and that game was winnable. But because you made a decision to continue to throw the ball and play passive defense, guess what? You lost those games. So I think it's just average. Now, I tip my hat to him, and kudos, for at some point getting to the point where, he did make those changes. But I think overall, it's a C average, just because, when you're a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, or a head coach, or a special teams coordinator, you don't have multiple games to figure it out. Okay. You got to be able to decipher what's going on in front of you and make the necessary and requisite changes in order to help your team win. And I just didn't feel like Nick Sirianni did that. Okay. One more question before we wrap, and I give you guys the lowdown on the giveaway, on the Super Bowl giveaway. So Noble Gregory says, Seth, what are your thoughts on BG coming off injury? Older guy, huge contract. Do you let him go? Year early better than a year late. There's a theory there, but I can tell you he's not going anywhere, because I think that Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman, and for that matter, Jeffrey Lurie, believes that, he's a big part of what they do. I think that they think that, he's a huge leader on the football team, and they believe he got some gas left in the tank. Only, time will tell. Trying to come back off of, injury of that nature is tough. It's really tough. It's seamless when you're young, but man, when you get up over 30 years old, man, and you have those types of injuries, it sure seems like they're tougher to overcome. Now, at the end of the day, the technology is much, much better for for these injuries and how they do the surgeries. You know, back in the day for knee injury, I mean, they give you the zipper. Now they just put a little incision that big. They put a scope in there. They can look at it. They can do everything mechanically, you know, and, you know, the whole deal is better. But we're going to have to wait and see on BG and see how he recovers and how he comes back. Last question, Matt. Matt wants to know, are there any young Eagles poised for a breakout year? I think Davion Taylor could be. I think that Jack Driscoll, if he can stay healthy, get bigger, get stronger, can step into that right guard position. And if he can stay healthy, he can have a big year there. And I don't know. It's hard to tell because a lot of, you know, when players break out, a lot of it has to do with, you know, how they coach and the plays that's called. You know, where the heck is John Hightower at? You know, does he want to play football? Does he not want to play football? Are the teams, you know, kind of disenchanted with him? You know, what happened? Why did Quez Watkins, you know, after such a promising summer and preseason, you know, just kind of fade to black? I don't get stuff like that. You know, if a guy's got 4.3 speed, you know, why aren't we utilizing it? Why aren't we running, you know, 15-yard comebacks off of the action of the go route? You know, why when we've got that guy one-on-one, aren't we running slant and goes and things of that nature? So, yeah, guys can break out, but at the end of the day, if they're not coached the right way and they're not given the tools to be able to break out, how the heck are they going to break out? You know, it's hard. All right. So before we go, I want to tell you guys we got a great promo for Super Bowl weekend. I am going to give away to the person who can predict. So make sure over here in the comments, you guys continue to leave comments here, but I want you to give me your prediction for the Super Bowl. Give me the winner and give me the score, okay? And the person who gets the score and the winner just right is going to win a Seth Joyner autographed Philadelphia Eagles jersey, okay? And we will give it away the Tuesday after the Super Bowl. I'm assuming my producer don't have the promo picture ready, but we'll throw it up next week. Listen, I need you guys to subscribe. There you go. I need you guys to subscribe. You see it there. Follow me at Seth Joyner Show on IG or Seth Joyner on Twitter. Tag 2 friends on Instagram or Twitter and subscribe to the Seth Joyner Show on YouTube. And the winner will be announced, like I said, the Tuesday after the Super Bowl. Hey, listen, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for the questions. As always, take care of each other and be good to each other. I'd like to thank my producer, Zach James, behind the scenes. Make sure you take care of each other, be good to each other. Most importantly, make sure you love each other. I will see you guys right back here next week with another edition of the Seth Joyner Show. Be cool, take care, and peace.